Good afternoon, everyone. Chief Madera Arredondo of the Minneapolis Police Department. I first want to just introduce distinguished public safety officials here today. Commissioner Harrington, Department of Public Safety, Colonel Langer of the State Patrol, Sheriff Hutchinson from Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, General Mankey of our Minnesota National Guard, Chief Ed Frizzell, Metro Transit Police Department, Chief Tyner of the Minneapolis Fire Department, Colonel Smith from our Minnesota DNR, and also Commander Gerlicher, Minneapolis Police Department. So thank you all for being here today, this afternoon. Over the next few minutes, you're going to hear about the preparation and planning for our region's safety for the upcoming trials to begin this March. One of the things that we are so very fortunate here in the state of Minnesota is that when it comes to public safety and when it comes to a need for assistance, Minnesota comes together. Our National Guard, our county, our local, and our state resources, we come together with the primary responsibility of keeping all our communities safe. And while we will focus on prevention, and you'll hear more about that in the upcoming remarks, it is also very important that we ensure for everyone's constitutionally protected First Amendment right to gather and demonstrate peacefully. As Minneapolis Police Chief, and certainly the focus and concentration will be in and around our downtown plaza corridor. The mere fact of the matter is that this will be a unified command. It will allow all of us to be able to respond metro and region-wide if needed, and it will allow great cooperation, coordination, and communication. And so, thank you again for being here. And at this time, I'd like to bring up Sheriff Hutchinson from the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Chief, and thanks for coming. I'm going to talk briefly about what the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office's main role is going to be, and of course that is going to be court security. Our job is to ensure the integrity of the court proceedings and the safety of everybody who's a part of it. Our deputies are some of the best in the nation and the most professional you'll find. And they're highly trained. We've done thousands of high-profile cases, and we've managed to have a good job from that. We've been planning this for months. We're ready to protect property, employees, and the citizens of Hennepin County. I also make a nice note of, I'm very grateful for our law enforcement partners. It's important to note, like the Chief said, it's a unified command. We're in this together, and I would like to thank Chief Axel from St. Paul and Ramsey County Sheriff Bob Fletcher for offering their support as well. We're going to take a measured approach. We're going to adapt and respond to different areas with different resources on a minute or hourly basis. I'm confident together we can ensure the court proceedings take place with no disruption. Again, we're not going to allow disruption. I think that needs to be pointed out. The court needs to go on. We all want to see justice served. In order for that to happen, everybody needs to respect the process. Let our deputies do their jobs, which is keep the people safe so the courts can do their job. We're asking for expressions of free speech are respectful and lawful. I think that's important to note again. Respectful and lawful. We want to protect everybody's rights, but if you cause harm, if you break things, burn things, hurt people's livelihood, I'm here to say you will go to jail. We will arrest everybody who breaks the law. We're not going to tolerate disorder. But it's important to note we're in this to make sure the process goes on like it should. And it's with great honor I introduce our next guest, who's the best, Colonel Langer.
Thanks, Sheriff. I think we have a PowerPoint that'll get brought up.
The standby.
Like reflexes? Tommy, it worked in practice. Can I move this over? All right, so we'll pick up where we left off. Thanks, Sheriff, for the introduction. My name is Matt Langer, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as Colonel of the Minnesota State Patrol. And my task this afternoon is just to outline this plan called Operation Safety Net. Operation Safety Net is a unified command approach to prevention and response during the Chauvin trial. The mission is twofold. First, to preserve and protect lawful First Amendment nonviolent protests and demonstrations. We want that to occur. And the second is to prevent large-scale violent civil disturbances, assaultive actions, property damage, fires, and looting to government buildings, businesses, and critical infrastructure, which is what we're here to prevent. The planning for this operation occurred starting back in July. It occurred in earnest all summer long, both on the east side of the river with St. Paul and Ramsey County and surrounding jurisdictions, and on the west side of the river with Minneapolis Police Department, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, and surrounding jurisdictions. About a month ago, there was a full-time coordination team that was established, embedded with the Minneapolis Police Department, to include the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, the Minnesota National Guard, members from the Minnesota State Patrol, Metro Transit Police Department, and the Department of Public Safety, Homeland Security, and Emergency Management. If we go to the next slide. We've organized ourselves around our phases. We're in phase one right now, which is the planning and preparation phase prior to the jury selection beginning. Phase two is when jury selection and the actual trial begins. Phase three is when closing arguments commence and the jury begins their deliberations, which will result in a verdict. And then phase four being demobilization and a reduction in staffing. And you can see phase three, in the interest of full disclosure and transparency for the community, phase three is when you will see the bulk of the resources being deployed. It doesn't mean that there won't be resources present during phase two and certainly during phase four, but phase three is when they will see the full deployment of law enforcement and the National Guard. Next slide. When I talk about the preventative posture that the planning coordination team have been working on in earnest for many months, it's surrounded around some tenets, the first being property protection detail. Of high interest, of course, is the protection of key business corridors throughout the city. Next is critical infrastructure protection detail. Protecting key government buildings and infrastructure is an important task for law enforcement and the Minnesota National Guard. Fire and EMS security, ensuring that fire and EMS crews can quickly and safely respond across the city and the metropolitan area to get to calls for medical service or calls for fire service is critical. Police precinct security detail will be put in place to protect the city's police department and the police precincts, and tactical traffic control to assure safety for pedestrians and the officers and others that will be working on these preventative resources. I should add that these are in no particular priority order. They're all equally important. The next slide articulates response resources. These are the resources that are going to be specifically dedicated toward keeping the mission in mind, that the First Amendment rights are protected and that the other destructive behaviors cannot occur. So the response resources include mobile field forces, quick reaction teams able to move quickly and swiftly to areas that take longer than a mobile field force can afford to respond to, bicycle rapid response teams for the same reason, booking and processing teams, SWAT and tactical teams, and in the event that it's necessary, bomb detection teams and explosives teams will be ready to respond as needed as well. The operational command structure, as you've heard, is unified command, and that can be a class in and of itself, but when you see all the patches listed on this slide, these are the agencies that have come together and agreed to operate under a unified command model. That means that the primary jurisdiction still has the responsibility for what occurs within that jurisdiction, but it also means that multiple voices are around that table, providing input, providing discussion, subject matter expertise, and the resources that they can bring to bear to safely prevent, and if not prevent, respond to whatever happens in that jurisdiction. Unified command team by nature is cooperative, it's collaborative, and it's a really important function of the Operation Safety Net Plan. The next question that comes up often is mutual aid assistance. We have called under the Unified Command Planning Team, have called for assistance from other agencies across Minnesota, and those responses have not gone unheard. And the coordinating team, specifically in Minneapolis with the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, the State Patrol, and the other agencies involved, continue to cultivate that mutual aid response that we know is necessary to safely get the community through this period of time in our state's history. Last slide. You'll see a list of a couple of categories that we've coined: encouraged activities and unlawful activities. And this is just trying to get everyone on the same page, members of the community, law enforcement community, the media, elected officials, around some key concepts of behaviors that we are saying are encouraged and behaviors that we are saying are unlawful and will land you in trouble should you choose to partake in those activities. That said, I have the honor of introducing the Commissioner of Public Safety for the state of Minnesota, Commissioner John Harrington.
Thanks, Colonel Langer. Thanks, Chief Arredondo. And I really do want to thank Commander Gerlicher, who started this planning effort back in July, because it was really important for us to take a page out of history and learn some lessons from both recent history here in the Twin Cities, but also to look at the experiences of places like LA and Ferguson, where court trials have come, gone, and where civil disturbances, protests, and riots have been the result. We're committed as part of the Unified Command to learn from history and not repeat it. We believe that if we do this the right way, and I really am incredibly impressed by the level of planning, the level of commitment that we have already received, that we will be able to prevent bad things from happening. And while we're there to prevent riots, destruction of property, personal injury, attacks on others, we are there absolutely to keep our commitment that each one of us has taken an oath to do, to protect the Constitution and support the Constitution. And that means that First Amendment right to be heard and to freely assemble has to also be guaranteed. And so it's a balancing act as we do both of those things. And it's not a one or an other, it's a both and. We have to make sure that people's voices can be heard. I can tell you from the experience of last year that in the midst of the riots, in the midst of the fires, in the midst of all that thing, the people's voices who really want to call out the death of George Floyd could not be heard over the vitriol and over the activity of folks that were there to destroy property and to hurt other people. This Unified Command is, I think, absolutely the right place, the right time, and it is a planful approach that I think really has the best chance of being successful. It's planful in two ways. One, it is pulling resources together. Governor Wallace often uses the phrase, one Minnesota. I think this is really an example of one Minnesota. We are all in this together. Whether you are from greater Minnesota and you love the Vikings and you love the Twins and you love coming to Minneapolis for fun and for vacation, or whether you live in the Twin Cities area and you work here, you go to school here, you have your clinics here, it doesn't make any difference. We're all Minnesotans and we're all in this together. And as such, we need to pull together to make this happen. So this is a One Minnesota Unified Command approach. It's also important to think of a plan because it is designed to prevent bad things from happening. If you think back to the ancient history of policing, the fundamental job of police is to prevent crime and disorder, not simply to react to it. This plan does both. This plan is set up to prevent bad things from happening and then to respond if they do happen. I think it is absolutely both proactive, it is preventative, and it is planful, and it is driven by that both and. That we are going to protect people's constitutional rights and we're going to protect people's property. This is not an either or for us in that case. Finally, I would just want to say once again, for those folks that are questioning whether we're going to have the resources, the answer is quite clearly yes. I can commit from the Department of Public Safety that our team is absolutely committed to protecting Minneapolis, protecting St. Paul. This is a metro area plan. It is not an either or once again there. But we have also reached out to our partners from greater Minnesota, from southern Minnesota, from the North Shore all the way down, and we have heard them say yes. From an early point where we didn't have very many people that were on that yes list to today, it is a sea change. And I expect to see in the Twin Cities, much as you saw during the RNC and during the Super Bowl, to see patches from all over the state of Minnesota. You're going to see uniforms of all kinds of different colors. You're going to see squad cars from all kinds of different places coming here together to say with one voice that we support the First Amendment and that we are going to protect the Twin Cities. As part of that plan, the state has been asked to provide Minnesota National Guard support. And at this time, I would ask General Menke to come forward to speak to that issue.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm Major General Sean Menke, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as the Adjutant General of the Minnesota National Guard. I'm here to tell you the Minnesota National Guard has been working on this team and will continue to be part of this team as we move forward. Our primary focus is to support the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul in ensuring the safety of our communities, preventing criminal activity, and safeguarding the peaceful expression of our First Amendment rights. The Minnesota National Guard will be an integral part of this team to make that happen. We have been actively coordinating and partnering with planning cells in these organizations for the last few months in order to move forward so we can synchronize our response. And under the Governor's executive order, we will provide National Guard soldiers and airmen to support law enforcement duties in our cities. Unlike last summer, the authorization to pre-stage National Guardsmen will provide us preparation and a more flexible and dynamic plan as we move forward. We have plans in place to meet the requests for both Minneapolis and St. Paul in supporting law enforcement efforts to maintain the peace. I realize the sight of soldiers in our communities is not a sight any of us want to see. However, this past year has been unprecedented. The Minnesota National Guard has been called to respond to civil unrest not only in Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul, but also in our nation's capital. Additionally, we have supported the state through multiple COVID-19 efforts as this pandemic races through the country. All of this while still doing our federal mission, deploying thousands of soldiers all over the world. Given what the Guard has done this past year, it is my sincere hope that the people of our communities understand that we are not a threat, but we are here to provide security. There are over 500 Minnesota National Guardsmen who live within the communities directly affected by the destruction due to the civil unrest from last May and June. When we stand watch over your communities, we are standing watch over our communities, our families, our friends, and our coworkers. We are members of your communities. Our primary goal is to keep these communities safe. We thank you in advance for your support as we move through this. It is now my privilege to introduce Chief Frizzell.
Good afternoon. Again, it's an honor to serve with each and every one of you as we go forth and do great things to protect and serve the communities in which we've all raised our right hand, and protect and serve is a part of who we are. Our mission is to keep our system running whenever possible. The Metro Transit Police Department encompasses over 7+ counties, 85 communities, and we fully understand the transportation necessities of people that just want to go to work, that want to go home, or to just get from point A to point B. We understand as guardians of trust and accountability, we will make that happen with the partnerships that we currently have in place for this upcoming situation. We know that transit is a lifeline within our community, and the Met Council and the Metro Transit specifically take it extremely serious when it comes to providing for that safe and secure transferability of our folks in the communities to where they need to go, when they need to go. This is not our first rodeo. This partnership was well established, and we've learned from lessons in the past. We have provided transportation from everything from the aftermath of the 35W bridge collapse, North Side tornadoes, and the Super Bowl, as well as the civil unrest that unfolded last spring. So, as we go forward, we want to make sure that our employees, riders, and our critical infrastructure associated with the Metro Transit system is safe and secure during times of uncertainty. And it's with great respect and pride that I do it with the teammates that are before you today. For those that depend on transportation systems, we will work tirelessly to communicate any changes that may occur because of dynamic and or developing situations. We will utilize social media, the web, rider alerts, operator safety net channels, and other ways familiar to our riders to ensure there's a clear chain of communication on what's happening within the transportation system that we're sworn to protect. Chief Arredondo.
I'd like to also just at this time ask if Chief Tyner from Minneapolis Fire Department would just say a few words about his department's operations during this. We know that last year, unfortunately, there were many fires and structures that were set ablaze. And so, Chief Tyner, if you have a few words.
Thank you. I'm Brian Tyner, Fire Chief of the Minneapolis Fire Department. We stand ready to respond to any emergencies that may come up as a part of the Derek Chauvin trials and any civil unrest that may happen. Our mission is to support all of these agencies by responding to fires and other emergencies as they may occur. We stand ready to do that. We have collaborated with each one of these agencies in the planning of this operation to make sure that everything goes as smoothly as possible. Just like all of these gentlemen have stated, we have learned and studied the past to try to figure out what we can do better in the future. I think we have been able to identify that and put those in place. And so I would just like to take this opportunity to reassure the public that the fire department stands ready to respond to any type of emergency that may come up as a result of the trials or any civil unrest that may happen. Thank you.
So at this time, thank you so much for being here. We'd like to open up for questions for any of our officials here.
Probably there's going to be a lot of discussion, I think, between when the line crosses from protesting into unlawful behavior. One thing I was wondering about, what's going to happen, maybe for State Patrol, what's going to happen when protesters go on to I-94, for example?
Yeah, I think I'll answer the question in two different ways. You know, Minnesota knows how to do protests the right way. We have jurisdiction at the state capitol. We see protests all the time at the state capitol for a variety of issues. And the vast majority of the time, they're peaceful, they're lawful, they're well within everyone's First Amendment rights. And when it's done right, it's a beautiful thing. The freeway is not the place to do that. And we've been steadfast in our commitment to say why. And the reason why the freeway is not the place to do that is because it's incredibly dangerous. That danger is real, and it around the country has caused people to lose their life. And I don't want to see that happen in Minnesota. And so there are many, many places to exercise your First Amendment rights. There's places that are designated by the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. There's public areas. There's many places. The freeway is not one of those places.
So just to follow up, so in past cases where freeways have been blocked, it may have caught authorities off guard to a certain extent. Considering the amount of planning now, are you planning that when people do go on a freeway, they will be arrested, or there will be a grace period to get off, or what does the public need to expect for this?
The challenge with the grace period is there is no grace period from an inattentive driver hitting someone. There's no grace period for safety on the freeway. And so part of our planning effort is to have a very strong message like the one I'm sending right now, and also to have a very strong preventative measure to keep people off the freeway. And I'll reiterate what I said before. There are many, many places to exercise your First Amendment rights and to do those things safely. The freeway is not one of those places.
Now, I've seen protests where the patrol has allowed people to go onto the freeway, and then there's been an arrest. So are you saying people are just going to be blocked or arrested if they try to go onto the interstate?
Yeah, and we have never facilitated freeway protests. There have been times where protesters go on and we don't have the resources available. What I'm just trying to resonate from a very common sense perspective that represents Minnesota. There are many places to exercise your First Amendment right. The freeway is not one of those places. Why? Because it's incredibly dangerous. And I don't want to see someone get hurt unassumingly exercising their First Amendment right in a very dangerous place. And so we are going to do our best to prevent that. But I also ask people to not do it because it's dangerous. And so this isn't about necessarily the threat of enforcement. It's me asking you, please don't do that because it's dangerous.
Are there going to be set areas for people to protest in the downtown area? And if so, where are they going to be?
Yes, I can answer that. There's going to be a few places on the plazas here. They will be allowed to protest as long as they want. Our goal is to make sure it's peaceful. And again, the questions, as soon as it crosses the line from protest to riot is when you break the law. So if you don't break the law and you are peaceful, you can stand on our plazas and do what our American right is and protest things you don't like. But again, break the law, you're going to get arrested.
One of the things that caught people off guard, I think, or surprised people about last summer's events is that there were people from all over the country, extremists, who came here to protest, and we certainly saw that at the nation's capital. What kind of work and intelligence is being done to make sure that people are coming? Do you have intelligence that they are coming? And what kinds of efforts are you going to have to monitor that during the course of the trial?
We're as prepared as we can be. We're working as hard as we can on a daily basis to look at intel. As of right now, I don't think we see a whole lot that we're concerned about. But again, come protest. It's your First Amendment right. But as soon as you cross the line, and again, we're not going to escalate anything. But as soon as there's damage to property, as soon as there's people getting hurt, and as soon as there's violation of the law, you'll be arrested.
Just to follow up on that question, Esme's question, earlier today we heard businesses given guidance about, you may want to board up if here's what to do, if you bring in extra security. Just today we saw the long list of the various teams, whether it's the mobile teams. At the very bottom it was mentioned that if necessary there could be, bomb investigative units brought in. Do you have any indication at this point, or are you expecting that demonstrations will become violent? Do you have any, reason to believe at this point that we could see riots or violence?
Commissioner, you want to answer that one?
John Harrington, DPS. What I can tell you is in twofold. One, we are coordinating our intelligence nationally. So we are working with our federal, state, county, and local partners to gather as much information about extremist groups who we have seen here in the past, or extremist groups that are having in their verbiage, to the extent that we can track that in public sources, that are talking about coming here for the trial. We recognize that this trial is going to be an international trial. It will have media from literally all over the world, is what we've been told. With it being videoed live, being streamed live, we expect that that is going to generate even more conversation about people coming here. As we are monitoring that and checking our boxes to make sure that we know who might be coming here, we are also planning both with the business community. So I've already started having conversations with the Grocers Association, for example. We're going to have conversations with the banks. We're going to have conversations with the pharmacies. We're going to have conversations with the liquor stores. Some of the places that we saw get burned or looted in the last time, so that they can be prepared. And we are going to both communicate what we know, so that they can pass that out to their members, so that they can be as well prepared as possible. As of right now, we do not have any current actionable intelligence about groups planning to come here to disrupt the trial or to cause disorder. We are exercising this unified command out of caution. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, and we all know how that ends. So we are not going to be caught flat-footed. We are asking our partners to share intel, and we are going to continue to do that, including standing up an intel section to make sure that the information we have is shared across all of the partners, so that if we have cars, as we did last summer, driving in with no plates and blacked out windows, and they show up in Anoka, we want the Anoka County Sheriff to know that as soon as we know that. We don't want them to be guessing about that either. So we're going to share the information, but right now we don't have credible, actionable intel of any current plan to disrupt the trial.
Now, of the 2,000 National Guard members, 1,100 police officers, at the peak, as the mayor was saying this morning, what percentage will be here in downtown Minneapolis versus elsewhere in the Twin Cities metro?
I believe, and General Menke, you may be able to correct me on this, it's a 1/3, 2/3 split in terms of the National Guard. It's about 2,000 National Guard in the West Metro area, and about a 1,000 National Guard presence in the East Metro area. We also have, obviously, mutual aid from a variety of police departments that are coming in. East Metro has, as I recall, Ramsey County, Washington County, and Dakota County has committed to support their efforts, and Hennepin County and other agencies are supporting the West Metro efforts. So it is a balance. We recognize that with the court hearings here in Hennepin County, that this is the most likely place to see activity, but we are spread out and planning for a metro area wide response as necessary.
What do you anticipate the full law enforcement numbers will be for Minneapolis?
That's still a work in progress, quite honestly. A month ago, 2 months ago, I would tell you that we didn't have a whole lot of mutual aid, and within the last week or so, I believe we had well in excess of 300 additional people, in addition to St. Paul's complement, in addition to the State Patrol, in addition to Minneapolis, in addition to Hennepin County and Ramsey County, that have now said that they're coming forward also. And that number continues to grow. So what the final number will be, I expect we will have enough uniformed police to support the National Guard's effort, because they are not police officers, and we're going to need to make sure that we have police officers that have full police powers working with them, in addition to the core agencies that are committed and the mutual aid. So I can't give you a number on that at this point, but I believe that number, as I said, continues to grow, and I'm hoping that this press conference is part of getting it to grow even further. I want folks to know from greater Minnesota and from outside of the Twin Cities that if you're interested in being part of making sure that this trial comes off the way it's supposed to, with the folks' First Amendment rights protected and the trial safe and the city safe also, that we're still open to having them volunteer to come and work with us.
We have time for two more questions, please. Have any agencies turned down requests for mutual aid specifically?
Have any agencies turned down? None that I'm aware of.
When you talk about a couple months, are you saying that there were not agencies volunteering before? I mean, we've covered this discussion in the legislature pretty extensively here. Are outside agencies willing to come in when you have these conversations? Do they need to be talked into it and have any turned you down and say, we're not coming?
I haven't had any agencies that I've called personally turn us down. I've had them ask me really good questions about, well, what would I be doing, and how would my staff be utilized, and how many days would they be there for? And so they've asked really tough questions because they have city officials who want to know that their most valuable resources in their community are coming here for a good purpose. But I have not had any of the agencies that I personally reached out to turn us down. I know there were agencies that had questions, though, and I think we've begun as part of the unified command to be able to answer all of those questions. And that's why I think you've seen the really astounding jump from nobody to, or very few agencies volunteering to, as I said, in excess of 300 officers now, that have had their agency say, yes, they're coming here as part of mutual aid.
Now, who makes the decision as to put which groups where, which resources where, given that there are so many leaders involved in this unified command structure? Is there one single point person?
There is not one single point person because it is, in fact, by definition, unified command. So there is the body who are the leaders on the ground, the operational leaders. There are policy leaders that will be consulted with that. But the decisions will be driven by the local jurisdiction where the action is happening. But it will be done in concert with all of the other lead partners, which State Patrol and the county, the National Guard, all of those folks will have a voice at the table to make sure that the decision fits both our resources, our planning, and our direction.
Jesse, last question, please, Jesse.
If, as Colonel Mayer said, and as you mentioned, that the local jurisdiction does have the final say, if there's a disagreement over how to go forward, would it be up to Minneapolis in the end?
Ultimately, if it happens, if the action is in Minneapolis, Chief Arredondo is the decision maker. If it happens in St. Paul, it's Todd Axtell, and if it happens in Greater Minnesota, which it very well could, as we've seen before, that local chief or sheriff will in fact be who we ask to make the final call. But in each of those cases, it'll be done in concert with all of the partners that are at the table.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. We will be able to answer additional questions through the PIOs, so go ahead and contact their offices. One of the things that I will tell you is that they are going to be setting up a Operation Safety Net JIC, folks. Okay, yeah, we're going to be setting up an Operation Safety Net JIC that is going to be working directly in getting information out, law enforcement information. The city will have a GIS that will also be pumping out citywide information. So there will be telephone numbers specifically set up for that so that you will know where to get the information that you need.
What was that word you said?
JIC, Joint Information Center, and a GIS is a Joint Information System. JIC is an in-person, a GIS is a remote. So, sorry, those are... Law enforcement will have a JIC. We will be in person with representatives from each of the law enforcement agencies present. So, every day. Thank you, everybody.
Somebody else didn't know what that was.
I knew it was joint information.